Hey, what is going on, guys? And welcome to the Budget Deck Market Watch. You guys crushed the like goal for the last Market Watch on Saturday, so I decided to throw this together today on Thursday. And not only did you guys hit the 5 like goal, you hit last week's 10 like goal that didn't get reached too. So thank you so much. I don't know if we want to set a like goal on this. Let's go ambitious. Let's go 10 likes again. You guys crushed it, hit it out of the park, so I'm 100% sure you can do it this time. So I set this up in a special way. So I went kind of like 3 categories. So I went like a $10 section, a $30, and then a $50 section. My logic was $10 is like really getting someone into the game, maybe an additional deck you just want in the back row if you're not kind of like, feeling the format. $30 is like a true budget deck. It's like you can get 3 structure decks or you can get this. And then $50 is like in my opinion, like competitive meta budget decks that like aren't really going to break the bank, but aren't definitely going to do the best thing, but still can, compete at a high level. Now, the only thing I'm going to say is we're only going to be looking at the core of the deck, not the staples. If we include staples, you're going to be seeing a lot of weird things. But if you really want to see that, like true, like $10 decks, like staples included, let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to do that. So let's go ahead and get straight into it. So first off, at our cheapest deck is Dinosaurs. This deck is the classic budget deck, 3 structure decks, 1 almost a YCS, I believe. I think it's got second at a YCS or something crazy. And pretty much the entirety of this deck got reprinted in Wild Survivors. Ultimate Conductor, Giant Rex, Misk, Soul Eating, Baby, Lost World, everything got reprinted. And this all adds up to about $5. Now, sure, we aren't doing the full like extra deck and everything, but this is where you can really fill stuff out. You can, trade with people, you can get other cards, you can have staples that you already have, like fill stuff out. And one notable thing I want to include is the scrap engine. This is about like 75 cents as an engine, and it's really good paired with the double evolution pill now that we no longer have Link Karibo, but you can still do plenty of other things. You can always go Anima for the Archosaur, that way you can get your non-dinosaur for double evo pill. But yeah, it's a really strong deck. There's a lot of ways you can build this. You can play, as I said, with scraps, you can play pure, you can play it with True Kings if you want to play Lithosagem, so really cool deck. Up next, I want to cover Rescue Ace. This deck is a deck that really gives you a place to build from. Obviously, Wanted, Diabell, and Bonfire are expensive. They are getting reprinted in the tins in only a couple weeks, and I think it's going to be easy to build like a full Rescue Ace deck for maybe $50, maybe $70. So if you pick up the core now, you're like really sitting pretty, but like Hydrant's only about $3, and the rest of this deck is like nothing. Like, it's really nice that like this is a deck that was competitive not even a year ago, and it's still competitively viable. Like, you can still play this. Up next, I wanted to cover a deck that was a little bit different. So before we had like a kind of a combo deck, then we had a control deck. Now I want to go over like a combo towers deck. This is Adagnister. Shout out to my boy Zohair. Now I will say modern builds of this deck play the new Firewall cards as well as Math Mech cards. Normally you're ending on Singularity plus Terahertz. But this is a build that's much cheaper. When I say much cheaper, it's like the difference is like $10 up here. You can see it's 11, almost 12 to like 15, almost nothing. But I did think that the Towers build is a build like to really consider, especially if you're trying to get somebody into the game, or you're new and you're just trying to like help them learn how the game works and everything. And this teaches them a pretty cool combo. And the nice thing about it is, like, since Axis Code got reprinted in Rarity, this isn't expensive at all. This was like the only thing holding the deck back for a long time from being budget. And you can see like this is pretty much a full deck. It's just, hand traps, staples, all that other stuff, and you're pretty much good. Up next, we're getting into like the higher tiers, but one thing I did want to cover before we get into like the true $30 is Plunder Patrol. Now this is the Adventure Plunder Patrol deck, and again, this is a deck that you can build in a lot of different ways. I think there's like runic builds, there's pure builds. I think the Adventure build has something to note, because not only are you getting a full playable deck with almost a full extra deck here for only about 20 bucks. This is something that I might actually pick up myself. You're also getting an adventure core, an adventure engine that is pretty much playable in everything you could imagine. Like almost every time a new set releases, a new archetype comes out, we always wonder, like, well, can we play adventure in this? Because, you know, the Wandering Griffin Rider negate is like really powerful and all that kind of stuff. And this is a deck that you can pick up and you can play. And this is a deck that has a lot of skill expression, teaches you a lot about the game. It's really a deck that you can play for a while and you can build and change and all that stuff. So really great deck. Yeah. Up next we have Sprite. Now this is the smallest deck by far of all of them, but I wanted to really include this to show you that this is a deck that it just has so much potential, right? Like anytime they print a level 2 monster, we always ask, is Sprite like playable? How much more playable is Sprite? Obviously, like we got Mirror Magic of the Ice Barrier not too long ago, and that, you know, everyone is like, okay, well now we can make Toad again in Sprite, so this must be playable again. And I will say, like, you know, it's not a great deck, but it's a deck that's always present and can always be played. If you look back on my channel, you'll notice some Cyber Sprite decks that I thought were really cool. Zach also thought it was really cool, and he took it and he did really well with it. He's a much better Sprite player than I was. But yeah, this is a really cool deck, and I think you guys should definitely consider it if you're looking at just like a deck core to pick up or maybe something to play, anything like that. Up next, I want to cover Tri-Brigade Fire Kings. This was a deck that I hesitated to include for a bit, but I decided it is a really interesting deck. The reason I hesitated to include it is because it is just essentially 3 structure decks here with some additional Tri-Brigade cards. But again, this is only about a $20, $30 deck. There's a lot of ways you can build this. I cut out a lot of things from the extra deck. You could easily play like more Shurags, extra copies of like Bear Brum, you know, all that kind of stuff. A very interesting thing you can include is the Dogmatica cards. Those play really well with the Fire King build. And with Wanted and Diabellstar and Bonfire and everything like that, getting reprinted in the tins, just like with Rescue Ace, this is a deck that gives you a platform to build off of that can be really, really interesting. Now this is one that I know a lot of people are going to hate me for. Fluanderies. It's a control deck. Now, I know everyone hates playing against Fluanderies. I really do. I hated playing it. I hated playing against it. The only time I ever considered this deck a genuine pick where like I wasn't hating myself was in Tier 0 Tearlaments format. That being said, this is a full deck. This is a completely full deck. You could pick up these exact 40 cards, sleeve them up, go to locals. The only thing you might need is extra cards for Product Prosperity, which did go to 1 on the last list. I will concede that, but we just upped the copies of Swallow's Calorie. You can play Book of Moons, you can play DeFi, you still get to play Shifter. This deck is really strong. There's a lot of decks that can't really play around the axis that this deck operates on, and a lot of decks just can't beat Empen. Empen's still a hell of a card. And I mean, if you really want a deck that's like anti-meta, that isn't that expensive, I think Fluanderies pretty much is it. And you still get to play Harpy's Featherstorm, which is a crazy card. And like I said, this is always a deck that you can build up. You know, obviously this is kind of like the bog standard, which you could play the Simorg cards if you wanted more normal summons. You could play Thrust if you want extra ways into, you know, cards like Duality, Prosperity, you know, Terraforming if you need to get to your field spell, all that kind of stuff. So this is Runic. I know I just went Fluanderies into Runic. This is only here because I do want to show off the Runic engine as just a concept, right? You can pick up a full Runic engine for about $40. So now we're getting into like the $50 range. And granted, Runic by itself is not a playable deck. Nobody plays just Runic. It's Runic Stun, Runic Ice Barrier, Runic Bastille, Runic Naturia, Runic Whitewoods. But like those are all decks that use Runics, and it is a really good deck. Trust me, I get that you hate Runics. I get that a lot of people hate Runics. But in terms of a budget deck, in terms of a budget engine, a core that you can pick up and play and have for a while and really do well with, I think you do need to consider Runic as an option. Onto a much more interesting deck is Dragon Link. So you might notice that there's a couple notable cards missing, namely Dispotter and Chaos Angel from the extra deck. Also, we have like, there's no SP, but we're just going IP into Unicorn instead. And we might be cutting down on a lot of Bastiles. You might say, why are we only on 1 Lubellion, all that stuff. But realistically, this is kind of all you need. This is a list. This is based off a list that my buddy Zohair gave to me, and obviously we did cut out like all the hand traps and everything like that. But I mean, this is Dragon Link. You can still make Borrowland. You can still do pretty much everything you were doing in Dragon Link. one Chaos Space, one Lubellion, triple Sornier to search Lubellion, a lot of ways to get to all your cards, and it is a very strong deck. I mean, Zohair topped a regional, the Minnesota regional, not too long ago with what was essentially this list. Obviously, small changes here and there, but yeah, I mean, it's a deck that just doesn't die. Anytime something comes off for Dragon Link, people always consider it. Rose Dragons are getting considered now that they came off the list. So yeah, I mean, Dragon Link is a deck that you kind of just always have to have on your radar as a playable strategy. Next, I want to cover Blackwing. This might be a weird include, but look at this. This is again like a full deck. You can get a disc powder for about $50. The Blackwing cards are super cheap. There's a lot of ways you can build this. This is the Kalyuga turn skip build. So you rank up Arsenal Falcon into DDD King Kalyuga on your opponent's turn and basically just skip their turn. There's also just synchro builds that you can play that make like triple Assault Dragon and an Armor Master. You can do tons of stuff with this deck. It's just not explored that much. There's a couple of reasons. It does kind of lose hard to troll. It's not as resilient as other combo decks, but it's a deck, and I think it can be pretty scary if it goes uninterrupted. But that's like every deck in the game. So this is a deck that I think is a playable deck. Obviously, the classic players, if you're trying to get a friend back into the game, tell them that Blackwing is a playable deck. I don't know about some of these cards in here, like this one. I don't even know what that one is, but yeah, I mean, if you want to play Blackwings, we can play Blackwings. The last deck I wanted to include was just the last little treat deck for you guys is Sky Striker Orcus for all of you Toss fans in the audience. This is a little bit over, it's about $55. That being said, I mean, again, we have the full Orcus core, we have a Striker core here with Widow Anchors and Hornet Drones, Shark Cannons, everything like that. We have Azaleas here, that's basically like the Striker SP, really this deck is pretty strong. Again, it's just a deck that isn't explored as much, but we have triple Harp now, so Orcus does have full power. There's a lot of things you can do. You can even incorporate Bystials into this to make use of Regained and all that kind of stuff. So this is a really cool deck. I played around with it a little bit, but dropped it pretty shortly after. But if you guys are fans of Toss format, you have friends that played in 2019 and dropped off because of COVID or something, I think this is a great deck to get them back into the game. They're like, hey, Toss is at full power again. We can play this. So I think it's been at full power for a while, but you could play Triple Armageddon Knight if you really wanted. So yeah, I think this is an interesting deck, and I think it's a deck that's worth considering, especially on a budget. But that is it from me, guys. I hope you guys did enjoy this budget deck market watch. It wasn't in my usual format. I kind of struggled to find a way to show all the decks, all the cards, and all the prices. But hopefully you guys like this. If you have any ideas for how to format it better, please let me know. If you have any ideas for other budget decks that you'd like me to go over, like me to talk about, or any just other ideas you might want the viewers to know, feel free to leave a comment. But I hope you guys did enjoy. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace!